She walked into the golden light of the city's most elegant restaurant. Confident, untouchable, a woman who thought she had everything. But that night, when her little boy reached for her hand and whispered, "Mom, can we sit with them?" everything changed. Across the room sat a tired single father and his daughter, laughing over a simple plate of pasta. And in that moment, two worlds collided. One built on wealth, the other on love. What happened next would remind everyone that sometimes the richest hearts belong to those who have the least. Before we go on, allow me to wish you peace and good health. Tell me from which country and at what time are you watching this story? The city was still half asleep when Vivian Cross's car slid to a stop before the mirrored tower of Cross Holdings. Dawn painted the glass in faint rose light, turning the skyline into something fragile and temporary, much like her peace of mind. Every morning, Vivian rehearsed calm the way others rehearsed prayers. The routine was armor. One glance in the rearview mirror, one controlled breath, one silent reminder that perfection wasn't an option, it was survival. She stepped out in her tailored gray suit, heels sharp against the marble floor, and the lobby hushed itself as if the air recognized her. The guards greeted her with quiet respect. Assistants trailed behind, balancing schedules and tablets. Vivian barely heard them. Her thoughts were already 10 floors ahead, where decisions waited like weapons. At 32, she was the youngest female CEO in the company's history, and perhaps the loneliest. The tabloids called her the Iron Dove, soft voice, steel heart. She'd learned early that kindness was a luxury the world punished in women. "Miss Cross," her assistant Jenna called as they entered the elevator. "The press wants comment on the foundation gala tonight." Vivian nodded absently. "Tell them I'll attend for 15 minutes. Smile, photo, leave." Jenna hesitated. "And your son's recital at Street Mary's? It's scheduled the same time." A pause, brief but heavy. "I'll watch the recording," Vivian said too quickly. Eli was 6. He had his father's eyes and a restlessness, a child who laughed easily but waited for affection like a guest in his own home. She'd promised herself he'd never feel neglected, yet work always found a way to come first. In her office, she placed her purse beside the window. The view stretched across Portland's skyline, rivers, bridges, motion. From up here, people looked like order. Down there, life was chaos she couldn't control. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eli's teacher. "Eli was nervous today. Said he hopes you'll be proud even if you can't come." Vivian exhaled slowly, eyes closed. Pride, the one emotion she could never show without breaking the mask. She walked to the shelf where a photograph stood, her late husband smiling beneath a fishing hat, holding a toddler Eli by the hand. It was taken the summer before the accident. Vivian hadn't been there. She was in Tokyo, closing a deal that made her name known worldwide and left her heart buried under the headlines. The intercom clicked. Jenna's voice came through. "Your driver's ready for the evening meeting, Miss Cross." Vivian smoothed her jacket, sliding the photo back into its frame. "Cancel the driver," she said quietly. "I'll walk tonight." "Walk?" Jenna sounded surprised. "It's 5 blocks to La Mer. Then I'll remember what sidewalks feel like." She ended the call, grabbed her coat, and stepped into the cooling dusk. The autumn air was crisp, scented faintly with coffee and rain. For the first time in months, she wasn't moving between walls of glass and steel. She was among people. Across the street, laughter spilled from a small bakery. A father lifted his daughter onto his shoulders, her pink scarf fluttering in the wind. The scene pierced something soft inside Vivian, a memory, or maybe envy. She turned away before the ache grew too sharp. Tomorrow would be Eli's recital. Tonight would be dinner with clients. And somewhere between the two, a choice she didn't know she was about to make would change everything. The soft glow of evening lights washed across the city as Vivian entered La Mer, Portland's most exclusive restaurant. Crystal chandeliers hung above velvet booths. Waiters moved in polished rhythm. It was a place meant for silence and status, not comfort. Vivian crossed the room, her heels clicking like punctuation. The maitre d' recognized her immediately and gestured toward the private VIP section. Yet, halfway there, a sound stopped her childish laughter, pure and contagious, floating from a corner table. She turned. A man sat with a little girl, their table modest and out of place amid the opulence. The man's shirt was faded, sleeves rolled halfway, hands roughened by work but moving with quiet precision as he cut a bowl of pasta into small bites. The girl, perhaps 5, had golden curls and wide hazel eyes. She giggled each time the man pretended to twirl spaghetti too long and lost it to her fork. For a moment, Vivian simply stared. The warmth in that corner looked alien, like sunlight trapped in a snow globe. Her son Eli, sitting beside her, tugged her sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "can we sit near them? She looks fun." Vivian hesitated. "We have our own table, sweetheart." "But she's laughing," Eli insisted softly. "I want to laugh too." Vivian's gaze drifted again to the man Owen Hayes, though she didn't know his name yet. He caught her glance and quickly looked down, embarrassed. The gesture was simple, respectful, almost humble. Something in it pierced through her habitual armor. The maitre d' cleared his throat, confused. "Madam, your seat is ready." Vivian looked at her son, then at the corner table. The distance between them felt symbolic, one side of the restaurant glittering with wealth, the other glowing with warmth. "Actually," she said, surprising herself, "we'll sit there." The maitre d' blinked. "Pardon?" "Right there," she repeated calmly. "My son prefers that spot." Owen nearly choked on his water when she approached. Up close, her presence carried the chill of authority and the scent of jasmine. "Mind if we join you?" she asked, voice soft but formal. "My son seems taken with your daughter." Owen stood quickly, pulling out a chair. "Of course, ma'am, please." Lily beamed. "Hi, I'm Lily. What's your name?" "I'm Eli," the boy replied shyly. "That pasta looks good." "It is. Daddy made sure they didn't burn it this time." She grinned, offering him a forkful with pride. Vivian sat stiffly, unsure where to place her hands. She wasn't used to sitting this close to strangers, much less people who reminded her of everything she'd lost. As they ate, she noticed Owen's patience, the way he listened, how he smiled only when Lily looked at him. His hands were scarred but steady, the kind of hands that fixed things, not just held them. When Eli asked, "Can you cut mine like that too?" Vivian froze. Owen hesitated, glancing at her for permission. She nodded silently. He leaned forward, cutting Eli's food with the same care he gave his daughter. The boy watched, wide-eyed. Vivian did too, unable to look away. Nearby diners began to whisper the CEO dining with a man who clearly didn't belong. Cameras shifted, curious eyes recording every frame. But Vivian didn't care. Not in that moment. The waiter returned, eyeing Owen's worn shirt with a sneer. "Sir," he said coolly, "that dish is premium." "Are you sure you can?" Vivian's voice cut through like a blade. "Bring 2 more servings. Charge them to my account." The waiter paled. Owen murmured, "You didn't have to." "I know," she interrupted softly, "but I wanted to." Across the table, Lily and Eli clinked forks like tiny swords, giggling. The sound was brighter than the chandelier above them. Vivian smiled, not the polite corporate kind, but a real one. It startled even her. And for the first time in years, beneath the noise and stares, she didn't feel alone. The dinner should have ended quietly. Vivian had planned to pay the bill, leave a polite thank you, and never cross paths with the humble stranger again. But the night refused to fade neatly into routine. Owen helped Lily with her coat, guiding her small arms into the sleeves with practiced gentleness. Vivian noticed the little gesture, the patience it carried. He's a good father. She found herself thinking a thought that felt foreign, almost dangerous. Eli lingered near Lily, reluctant to say goodbye. "You're funny," he said shyly. Lily giggled. "You should come to the park with us. Daddy makes the best paper airplanes." Vivian smiled faintly. "Maybe someday." She didn't mean it, but the warmth in her son's eyes made her wish she did. As she signed the check, her phone buzzed violently, a message from her assistant Jenna. "Urgent. Board members are spreading rumors about your health. Possible meeting tomorrow. Someone leaked internal memos." Her heart clenched. It was happening again, the boardroom knives, the whispers, the doubt. She straightened, trying to steady her breathing. Owen noticed. "You okay, Mom?" Vivian managed a tight smile. "Just work." He nodded, respectful, but didn't look convinced. "Sometimes work looks like it's choking the air out of you." Ugh. Before she could reply, another message arrived. "Video leaked. You need to leave now." Her hand trembled. She reached for the glass of water, but her fingers missed. The edges of the room began to blur, the chandelier's glow smearing into streaks. Eli's voice pierced the haze. "Mom?" The world tilted. Vivian gasped, knees giving way. The last thing she saw was her son's terrified face and Owen vaulting over the table. He caught her before she hit the floor. His movements were swift, precise, practiced. "Sugar," he muttered, scanning the table. "I need sugar." He grabbed a discarded coffee service, ripped open a packet, and poured it into a glass of water. "Drink this," he ordered softly. Her eyes fluttered, dazed. "Who?" "Just breathe. You're safe. You're having a hypoglycemic episode. I've seen it before." The staff stood frozen, whispering. Cameras clicked. Owen ignored them all, his focus absolute. He tilted the glass to her lips, steady as stone. Minutes passed before color returned to her face. Vivian blinked, the world coming back into focus. Eli clung to her arm, trembling. "Mom, I thought you were—" She wrapped an arm around him weakly. "I'm fine, baby." Then she turned to Owen, realization dawning. "You, how did you know what to do?" He hesitated, wiping his hands with a napkin. "Old training," he said simply. "I used to be a trauma medic." Vivian stared, shocked. "You're?" "Not anymore," he cut in. "Now I fix boilers and broken elevators. Sometimes people too, when I have to." Silence settled, thick and tender. Across the restaurant, someone whispered, "That's Owen Hayes. He works maintenance in the building next to Cross Holdings." The irony wasn't lost on her, the billionaire saved by a janitor she'd probably passed 100 times without noticing. Vivian tried to stand, but her legs shook. Owen steadied her with a quiet professionalism that made her chest tighten. "Let me help you to your car," he said. "No," she began, then saw Eli's pleading face. "All right," she conceded. They walked out together into the cool Portland night. The air smelled of rain and roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor. Vivian paused beside her black sedan, the city lights reflecting on the wet street. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. Owen shrugged. "Don't need thanks. Just take care of yourself." Eli tugged his sleeve. "You're like a superhero," he said solemnly. Owen smiled, the corners of his eyes creasing. "Nah, kid. Just a guy who carries sugar." Vivian laughed softly, the first real laugh she'd had in months. The maitre d' ushered curious guests away while waiters whispered about the scene. Vivian, pale but steady, motioned toward the private lounge. "Please," she said to Owen. "Come inside, both of you." Owen hesitated. "Ma'am, you've had a scare. You should rest. I insist." Her voice was calm but carried a trace of vulnerability she didn't recognize. Inside, the lounge glowed with muted amber light and mahogany walls. The chaos of the dining room faded, replaced by quiet warmth. Eli and Lily ran ahead, finding comfort in play, as if nothing had happened. Their laughter bounced softly off the leather sofas. Vivian sank into a chair, still trembling slightly. She looked up at Owen. "You said you used to be a medic?" He nodded, eyes focused on the teacup in his hands. "Military trauma doctor. I served 2 tours overseas." Her gaze softened. "And now you? Work maintenance?" A long pause. "I left the field after my wife died," he said quietly. "There was a surgery, something went wrong. I was consulting remotely. I thought I was helping, but I wasn't there when she needed me most, so I walked away." Vivian's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." Owen gave a tired smile. "Don't be. I learned fixing things was easier than fixing people." For a while, neither spoke. The children's laughter filled the silence. Vivian watched them, Eli's eyes wide with joy, Lily's hands guiding his, and realized she'd never seen her son this alive. "Do you always work this late?" Owen asked, voice gentle. "Always," she admitted. "It's what success demands." He studied her quietly. "Sometimes success just means having dinner with your kid before bedtime." Enter T. The truth in his tone stung more than any accusation. Vivian rubbed her temples. "They think I'm collapsing the board, the media, everyone. They're waiting for me to fail." "Then don't give them what they expect," Owen said simply. "You don't need to fight like a CEO right now. You just need to breathe like a person." His words lingered. Vivian couldn't remember the last time anyone had told her to breathe. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jenna entered, eyes wide with panic. "Vivian, the video of you collapsing has gone viral." The board called an emergency session tomorrow morning. They're invoking the fitness clause. Vivian's breath caught. They'll try to remove me. Yes, Jenna whispered. Unless we can prove you're medically stable and mentally sound. Vivian's hands trembled again. Owen stood, instinctively steadying her shoulder. She's not unfit, he said firmly. She's exhausted. Jenna blinked, noticing the way his touch calmed Vivian. Who? Are you? Someone who just watched your boss fight the weight of the world, he replied. Vivian tried to stand, but Owen's steady grip kept her grounded. You can't fix this, she whispered. Maybe not, he said, but I can make sure you don't break trying. For the first time, she let someone else's steadiness replace her own. Eli ran over, tugging her sleeve. Mom, Mr. Owen said you're like one of those tall trees in the park. Even when the wind hits, you don't fall. Vivian blinked back sudden tears. Did he now? Uh-huh. But he said trees still need sunshine. Owen smiled faintly. Smart kid. The night outside had deepened rain misting against the glass. Vivian looked from Owen to her son, then back again. The world she'd built on control was shifting beneath her, and somehow, she didn't want to stop it. The next morning, Portland's skyline glimmered under a soft drizzle, each drop sliding down the glass walls of Cross Holdings like slow-moving tears. Vivian watched the rain from her office, palms pressed against the cold window. The reflection staring back looked nothing like the woman from last night. The immaculate CEO was gone. In her place stood someone human, uncertain, still alive. On her desk lay a stack of medical clearance forms Jenna had rushed overnight. They'll need these for the board, Jenna said, pacing nervously. If we can't prove you're fine, they'll vote you out. Vivian didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward the corner of the room where a small drawing Eli had made years ago hung quietly. It was a stick figure family. Mom, Dad, and a little boy holding both their hands. One half of the page was faded, as if time had erased it. Where's the meeting? Vivian asked finally. Main conference room. 10 minutes. Jenna hesitated. Do you want backup? Vivian shook her head, then stopped. A thought surfaced. The calm in Owen's eyes as chaos swirled around her. The steadiness of his voice when everyone else panicked. Actually, she murmured, maybe yes. Owen stood at the entrance of the lobby, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, trying to look like he belonged. He didn't. The security guard eyed him with suspicion until Jenna appeared, waving him through. You're sure about this? He asked as the elevator doors closed. She trusts you, Jenna said simply. That's more than I can say for anyone else right now. The elevator hummed upward. Owen glanced at his reflection in the mirrored walls, rough hands, clean shirt, eyes still haunted. He hadn't planned to step back into the world of crisis and strategy, yet here he was, heading straight into another battlefield. When the doors opened, chaos awaited. The boardroom was a gleaming amphitheater of tension. Screens flashed news headlines. CEO collapses mid-dinner Cross Holdings in crisis. Share prices drop 8% as investors question stability. Whispers filled the air. At the far end of the table sat Martin Clay, head of operations, sharp suit, sharper smile. He rose when Vivian entered, feigning concern. Vivian, he said smoothly. We're all worried. No one wants to see your reputation suffer. Perhaps it's time to rest. Vivian placed her files on the table, each motion deliberate. Rest? She repeated quietly. You mean resign? Only temporarily, Martin replied, voice dripping with false sympathy. Until you're fit to lead, another board member finished. Vivian met their gazes, her posture regal despite the fatigue. I had a moment of physical weakness, she said evenly. It doesn't erase years of leadership. Martin's smile widened. Of course. But the public doesn't see nuance. They see a woman collapsing under pressure. A murmur of agreement followed. Owen, standing near the back, folded his arms. He'd seen this before, not in boardrooms, but in war zones, when soldiers circled a wounded leader. The scent was the same. Blood in the water. He caught Jenna's uneasy glance and leaned closer. Who recorded that video? An assistant, she whispered. We still don't know who leaked it. Owen frowned. Send me the file. Now. Jenna blinked. Why? Because nothing about that leak was accidental. At the table, Vivian's voice remained calm, though her pulse raced. You've all seen me build this company from nothing, she said. Do you think one fainting spell defines my ability to lead? Martin leaned back, feigning regret. It's not about what we think, Vivian. It's what the shareholders will think when they see that video again at 2 p.m., broadcast across every network. Her eyes narrowed. At 2 p.m.? He froze slightly, too slightly. The kind of slip Owen had learned to notice. Across the room, Owen's phone buzzed. Jenna had sent the file. He opened it quietly and began to analyze. Metadata. Timestamp. Upload origin. The location wasn't random. It traced back to the operations department, Martin's department, and the file had been uploaded exactly 4 minutes after Vivian collapsed by an internal IP tagged to Martin's personal assistant. Owen's jaw tightened. He slipped his phone into his pocket and stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, breaking the icy silence. "Before this meeting continues, there's something you all should see." The boardroom fell silent. Owen's voice carried the kind of calm that cuts deeper than shouting. "This video, everyone's worried about it, wasn't leaked by accident." Martin Clay stiffened. "Excuse me?" Owen walked to the head of the table, projecting the metadata Jenna had sent onto the main screen. "This is the original file," he said. "Recorded on a phone belonging to your assistant. Uploaded from your department's secure Wi-Fi 4 minutes after the incident." Gasps rippled through the room. Vivian blinked, stunned. 4 minutes? That's impossible. Not if the leak was planned. Owen replied evenly. He enlarged the image timestamps, access points, file names. The video was renamed before upload. That's a deliberate action, not an automatic backup. Whoever did it wanted it to go viral before the truth caught up. Martin forced a laugh, thin and desperate. "You're accusing me, a senior executive, of sabotage based on tech jargon from a janitor?" Owen's eyes stayed steady. "You're right, I fix broken things for a living. And right now, this company is broken because of men like you." The room shifted. The insult bounced back against Martin like a boomerang. Jenna leaned toward Vivian. "He's winning them," she whispered. Vivian's pulse thundered, a mix of fear and awe. For years, she had spoken in boardrooms with power. Owen spoke with truth, and somehow that held more weight. Martin tried to recover. "Vivian, you can't trust this man. He's manipulating data to protect you." Owen didn't flinch. "Then explain this." He clicked again, a screenshot of an email chain between Martin and his assistant. Subject: timing for upload. Body: make sure the leak hits before morning. She'll be forced to step down. The board gasped. Martin's face drained of color. Vivian rose slowly, her composure returning like the tide. "Martin," she said softly, "you've accused me of collapsing under pressure, but it seems you're the one falling apart." He sputtered. "You don't have proof that email's real." Owen handed her a printed copy. "Already verified. It's from your corporate server." Security guards appeared at the door, uncertain. Vivian gave a small nod. "Please escort Mr. Clay out." As they led him away, his voice echoed down the corridor. "You'll regret this, Cross." Vivian turned back to the room. The shareholders watched her, some ashamed, others impressed. She could feel the narrative changing. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone calm but unshakable. "Yesterday, I collapsed. Physically, yes, but perhaps more honestly. I collapsed under the weight of forgetting what really matters. Today, I stand not because of my position, but because someone reminded me that leadership starts with humanity." She glanced toward Owen. He looked down modestly, hands folded, avoiding the attention. A silence followed, then quiet applause. It grew until the entire table was standing. Later, outside the glass tower, the drizzle had turned into a light, cleansing rain. Vivian stood beneath the awning, breathing deeply. The air tasted like freedom. Owen approached quietly. "You didn't need me in there," he said. "You handled it yourself." She smiled faintly. "I needed you more than you think." He hesitated, glancing at her. "You should rest. Get out of this city for a few days." "Rest," she repeated softly. "The one thing I never let myself do. Then maybe it's time to learn." Eli's laughter echoed from behind them. He and Lily were playing by the fountain, rain catching in their hair like silver threads. Vivian watched them, her face softening. "I used to think control was my strength," she said. "But I was wrong. Letting go might be the only way to hold on." Owen smiled. "You're learning faster than most." For the first time in years, She didn't feel like the woman behind the glass walls. She felt human. 2 days later, Vivian's sleek black car hummed down Highway 26, cutting through the Oregon evergreens toward Cannon Beach. The city skyline had long vanished behind mist and pine. Beside her, Eli pressed his nose to the window, watching raindrops race each other across the glass. In the back seat, Lily hummed quietly to herself, a ribbon of laughter in human form. Owen drove ahead in his pickup, old and reliable, loaded with picnic supplies. He'd only agreed to the trip after much persuasion and one small promise. "We'll call it a break, not a vacation," Vivian had said. "You'll just supervise the kids while I try to remember how to breathe." He'd smiled then. "Supervising joy. That I can do." The wind off the Pacific carried salt and freedom. When they arrived, the air was thick with the smell of seaweed and pine sap. The ocean stretched endlessly, steel, blue, and alive. Waves folding and unfolding like thoughts she couldn't quiet. Eli bolted from the car first. "Mom, it's huge!" he shouted, running toward the surf. Lily followed, barefoot and fearless. Vivian stood still, watching them. Her heels sank slightly into the damp sand, a small, perfect imperfection. "I can't remember the last time I saw him run like that," she said. Owen came up beside her. His jacket collar flipped against the wind. "That's what kids do when they forget to be careful." She turned to him. "And adults? They start remembering again." For a long while, they just stood there, two people from different worlds, looking at the same horizon. The ocean had a way of shrinking everything. Empires, losses, pride. After setting up a small canopy and blanket, Owen cooked on a portable grill. The scent of grilled corn and coffee drifted through the air. Vivian sat nearby, shoes off, toes buried in cool sand. The tension in her shoulders slowly unwound with each breath. Eli and Lily built sand castles, their laughter riding the wind. When one wave knocked down their creation, Lily clapped instead of crying. "Now we can build it again," she shouted. Vivian smiled, quietly astonished. "She doesn't fear failure." Owen nodded. Her mother taught her that falling isn't losing, it's learning. Vivian hesitated. "You talk about her in present tense." He poked the coals gently, eyes fixed on the flame. "She's still part of us," he said. "When Lily laughs, I hear her echo." The words landed softly, heavy with truth. Vivian looked at him, realizing that behind his calm was grief, the kind that never fully healed, only softened. "I envy that," she admitted. "You still carry love with you. I buried mine with work." Owen looked up, meeting her eyes. "Maybe love isn't buried. Maybe it's just waiting for you to stop digging." She turned toward the sea, blinking back tears she hadn't expected. The breeze was cold, but for the first time, she didn't feel alone in it. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the children ran back, cheeks flushed. Lily held up a seashell. "Look! It sounds like the ocean!" She pressed it to Eli's ear, giggling. "Hear it?" He nodded, wide-eyed. "It's talking." Vivian watched, heart swelling with something she couldn't name. Gratitude, regret, hope, maybe all three. Owen handed her a cup of coffee, steam curling upward. "You ever notice," he said quietly, "the ocean never stops coming back no matter how many times it breaks?" She nodded slowly. Maybe that's what healing is. The sound of waves filled the silence between them. The sun had long slipped behind the ocean, leaving streaks of gold fading into violet. The children were asleep inside the beach cabin, curled under warm blankets. Outside, the waves whispered against the shore, a rhythm older than sorrow. Vivian stood on the deck, wrapped in a gray shawl, staring out at the dark horizon. She heard the crunch of sand behind her before she spoke. "You move quietly, Mr. Hayes." Owen smiled faintly. "Old habit. In the field. Noise could get you killed." He joined her at the railing, hands shoved in his pockets. "Can't sleep?" She shook her head. "Too many thoughts. Too much silence. I'm not used to hearing my own mind." He nodded, understanding without asking. The air smelled of sea salt and smoke from the small fire he'd built earlier. Vivian exhaled, voice barely above the wind. "I lost my husband 5 years ago. Car crash on his way home from Eli's birthday party. I was in Tokyo signing a merger." Her throat tightened. "When I landed, they'd already buried him." Owen didn't look at her, just listened the way someone does when silence is part of the medicine. "I told myself working harder would make the guilt disappear," she continued. But the more I built, the less I felt. Now my son talks to his nanny more than to me. Sometimes he looks at me like I'm a visitor." Her voice broke. "I've spent years trying to prove I was unbreakable. But maybe I've just been running from the pieces." Owen's reply came softly. "You're not the only one." She turned to him. He was staring at the ocean, his jaw set, eyes reflecting the distant bonfire. "When my wife died, I thought I'd buried everything worth living for. I tried to fix the world so I didn't have to feel how broken I was." He glanced at her, his tone deepening. "Then one day, Lily asked why I never laughed. I realized I couldn't remember the sound anymore." Vivian's breath hitched. The simplicity of his pain cut deeper than any confession. They stood in silence, the kind that isn't empty but full of what was unsaid, of shared ache and the slow thaw of understanding. Finally, Vivian whispered, "Eli said something earlier, that you told him trees still need sunshine." Owen smiled. "Yeah, guess that was my way of telling him it's okay to lean toward light." She looked at him, eyes wet but calm. "You've given us both some light." The ocean breeze carried her words between them. Owen reached into his jacket, pulling out a small shell Lily had found earlier. "She wanted you to have this," he said. "Said it sounds like the ocean, but maybe it's really the sound of not giving up." Vivian held the shell against her ear. The faint echo of waves hummed like a heartbeat. "It's beautiful," she murmured, "and humbling." When she looked up again, Owen was studying her quietly. Not the CEO, not the figure from magazine covers, but a woman simply learning to be human again. "Tomorrow," he said gently, "let's take the kids to Haystack Rock. The tide pools are full of tiny worlds surviving under pressure. You'd like them." She smiled. "You make survival sound poetic." "It is," he said, "if you do it right." For the first time, Vivian laughed, a soft, genuine laugh carried away by the wind. Beneath the starlit sky, two wounded souls stood side by side, not trying to fix each other, just letting the sea remind them they were still alive. When they returned to Portland, the skyline didn't feel as sharp as before. The glass towers reflected softer light, and the city hum carried less urgency, or maybe Vivian was finally hearing it differently. Eli hummed in the back seat, clutching a shell he'd found on the beach. Lily dozed beside him, her small hand curled around his. From the driver's seat, Owen glanced in the mirror and smiled. "Guess the ocean did its job," he said quietly. Vivian looked out the window. "It did more than that." Her voice held gratitude and something else resolve. For the first time in years, she didn't dread going back to her office. On Monday morning, the lobby of Cross Holdings greeted her with its usual blend of marble, glass, and hushed awe. But as Vivian stepped out of the elevator, she noticed something unusual. People smiled at her. Not the tight, polite smiles of subordinates, but genuine ones. Jenna hurried toward her. "Good morning, Miss Cross. Or should I say, welcome back from actually taking a weekend." Vivian laughed softly. "Don't make it sound like a miracle." "It was," Jenna teased. Then she lowered her voice. "The shareholders want to meet. No crisis this time, just gratitude. They saw the statement you released about transparency and employee wellness." "I meant every word," Vivian said. "We've been running like machines. It's time to remember the humans behind the screens." Her eyes drifted to the far corner where a team of engineers gathered, including one new face she'd personally invited. Owen stood there, now dressed neatly but still unmistakably himself. A security badge hung from his shirt pocket, and a faint look of discomfort sat on his features, as if he wasn't sure he belonged. Vivian approached. "First day nerves?" "Always," he said. "Even after deployments." She smiled. "You'll be fine. This time, no one's shooting at you, except maybe accounting." He chuckled. "Good to know." She guided him through the office, introducing him to team leads. "Everyone, this is Owen Hayes, our new advisor for corporate wellness and emergency response." The staff looked surprised. They'd heard the rumors about the maintenance man who saved the boss. But seeing him in this light felt different. Owen nodded politely. "I'm not here to change everything overnight," he said. "Just to remind people that taking care of each other keeps the lights on longer than any generator." The room laughed, but his words landed deeply. Later, as they stood by the panoramic windows, Vivian turned to him. "You speak like someone who's done this before." "I've patched up plenty of systems," he said. "Some mechanical, some human. She studied his reflection in the glass. The distance between their worlds seemed smaller now, like the space had been quietly rewired. "Thank you," she said, "for standing up in that boardroom, for coming back here, for everything." Owen met her gaze. "You don't owe me thanks. You just owed yourself a chance to be human again." Eli's laughter echoed from the hallway he was chasing Lily, who'd convinced Jenna to let them explore the office rooftop garden. Vivian smiled, her heart catching in that fragile space between joy and longing. She whispered, "I think I'm finally learning what success feels like." Owen raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "Peace," she said simply. Evening descended over Portland, the city glowing in shades of copper and mist. The office lights dimmed one by one until only a few remained, soft halos above empty desks. Vivian stood by the window of the executive floor, watching the reflection of street lamps flicker on the Willamette River below. Behind her, Owen closed his laptop. "That's the quietest I've ever seen a corporate floor," he said. Vivian smiled faintly. "That's because it's alive for the first time. People are leaving on time, seeing their families. I told HR to start enforcing it." Owen raised an eyebrow. "The CEO enforcing less work. The apocalypse must be near." She laughed, turning toward him. "Maybe it's the rebirth, not the end." The room carried the faint scent of coffee and rain-soaked air drifting through the cracked window. Vivian leaned against the sill, arms crossed loosely. "When you spoke this morning about burnout and resilience," the staff listened, "you made them see me differently." He shook his head. "No, you made them see you. I just translated the language." Her eyes softened. "You're good at that, bridging worlds." He shrugged. "It's easier when you've lived in both." For a moment they stood in comfortable silence. The city pulsed below traffic, laughter, life. Then Vivian spoke again, quieter. "Do you ever think about going back? Medicine, I mean." "Every day," he said. "But it's not the hospitals I miss. It's the feeling of helping someone breathe easier." She smiled. "Then maybe you never really left." Outside the glass walls, rain began again, light, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of a city learning to rest. A soft knock broke the stillness. Eli peeked through the door, Lily just behind him, their faces glowing under the corridor light. "Mom," Eli whispered, "can we stay here till the rain stops?" Vivian's lips curved into a tender smile. "Of course." They rushed in, setting up a little camp on the rug near the sofa. Lily unfolded her small blanket, while Eli arranged paper cups like makeshift candles. "Uncle Owen," Lily said proudly, "you have to tell us a story." Owen sat cross-legged, grinning. "All right. Once upon a time, there was a tiny company that forgot how to smile." Vivian chuckled, settling beside them. "And did the company ever learn?" Owen nodded. "It did, thanks to two kids who brought laughter into the tallest building in town." Lily gasped. "That's us!" "Exactly," Owen said. As his voice carried through the dim office, Vivian leaned back, her shoulders relaxing. The sound of the rain blended with the children's giggles, wrapping the room in warmth. When the story ended, Eli's eyelids drooped. He leaned against Vivian's arm, murmuring, "Mom, I like it better when you're not busy all the time." Her throat tightened. "Me too, sweetheart." Owen glanced at her, his smile gentle. She mouthed the silent thank you. He looked out at the rain again. "You know," he said softly, "for a city built on storms, Portland sure knows how to glow after one." Vivian followed his gaze. The skyline shimmered not as something to conquer, but as something alive, imperfect, and whole. 3 weeks later, just as the city had settled into calm, the storm returned not from the sky this time, but from the screens. Vivian woke to a dozen missed calls. The morning light barely touched the curtains when Jenna's voice cracked through the phone, breathless. "It's back! The video! They found it again." Vivian sat up, heart hammering. "That's impossible. We buried that story. Someone dug it up and twisted the narrative. They're saying your collapse was staged, a sympathy stunt before the board vote." For a moment, all she could hear was the faint rustle of Eli turning over in his sleep down the hall. The serenity of her home, the laughter, the soft morning shattered like thin glass. She rose, pulling on her blazer with shaking hands. "Call legal. Call PR. I'm on my way." By the time she arrived at Cross Holdings, reporters already swarmed the plaza. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions ricocheted across the marble steps. "Miss Cross, did you fake your medical episode? Was it part of a corporate scheme? Who's the mystery man seen with you that night?" Owen's face flickered on a nearby screen, captured in grainy footage as he carried her out of the restaurant. Vivian's stomach twisted. They turned him into a headline. Jenna met her at the door, eyes wide with dread. "The press is calling him your bodyguard, your secret partner, everything but the truth." "Where is he?" Vivian asked. "Downstairs. He's trying to stop the maintenance team from talking to reporters." In the basement corridor, Owen stood between two frantic janitors and a line of news cameras peeking through the service doors. His voice was calm but firm. "Nobody needs to explain anything. Just tell the truth. We were helping someone in trouble, that's all." When he saw Vivian, the calm flickered. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "It's my company," she replied. "They're my storm." Jenna pulled her aside, whispering, "The board wants you to release a statement distancing yourself from him. They say it's damage control." Vivian froze. "They want me to pretend I don't know the man who saved my life? That's what they're saying." Owen exhaled slowly, reading her expression. "Do it," he said quietly. "If cutting me loose saves you, then do it." She turned sharply. "You think I'm that person? I think you're someone who's fought too hard to lose everything again." Vivian stepped closer, her eyes fierce. "Then you don't know me at all." Their gazes locked tension, defiance, something fragile beneath it. The same connection that had once healed now threatened to tear everything apart. "Come upstairs," she said. "We face this together." Minutes later, the two of them stood before the press in the lobby. Lights blazed. Microphones lined the podium like bayonets. Vivian's palms were cold, but her voice was steady. "Yes," she began. "That man in the video is Owen Hayes. And no, he is not my security detail or my PR stunt." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She continued, stronger now. "He's a veteran, a medic, a father, and he saved my life without asking for recognition or reward. The only thing staged that night was decency." "Iskra?" Owen blinked, stunned. The cameras snapped faster. Vivian lifted her chin. "If my leadership is questioned because I trusted someone kind, then perhaps the real illness in business isn't weakness, it's arrogance." The room fell silent. Even the press hesitated, unsure whether to attack or applaud. Owen whispered, almost smiling, "You just threw away your shield." Vivian's answer was calm. "Maybe it's time they saw the person behind it." That night, the rain returned, steady, relentless, cleansing. The city shimmered beneath it like a bruised jewel. Vivian's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, investors, allies who suddenly spoke like strangers. She silenced it all. Owen's small house sat at the edge of the city, tucked between maples and a narrow stream. When Vivian arrived, she didn't speak. She simply stood in the doorway, drenched, trembling not from cold but exhaustion. He said nothing, just stepped aside and let her in. Lily was asleep on the couch, curled under a quilt. The television hummed softly, an old black and white western, the kind of movie that believed in simple heroes. Owen handed Vivian a towel. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said quietly. She managed a tired smile. "I wasn't sure where else to go." He poured her tea, setting it on the kitchen counter. The steam rose between them like a fragile truce. Vivian stared into the cup. "I don't regret defending you," she said, "but I may have just signed my own resignation letter." "Maybe," Owen said, "or maybe you just taught people what courage looks like." She looked up, eyes glistening. "Courage feels a lot like falling apart." "Sometimes it has to," he said. "That's how you rebuild stronger." The silence stretched, filled with the soft creak of the house and the rain's whisper against the roof. Vivian glanced around the modest living room. The small bookshelf lined with children's drawings, the faint scent of coffee and sawdust. It felt alive, in a way her penthouse never did. "You live simply," she said. "I live honestly," he replied. "After I lost my wife, I promised myself I'd only keep what I could fix with my own hands." She traced the rim of her cup. "And what about what you can't fix?" He looked at her gently. "Then I try to forgive it." The words sank deep, soft but unyielding. Vivian's voice cracked. "I spent so long pretending perfection was power, but all it ever did was keep people out." Owen nodded. Walls don't protect. They isolate. Trust me, I've built plenty. A thunderclap rolled through the night. Lily stirred on the couch, murmuring. Vivian went over, kneeling beside her. The girl's hand reached instinctively for hers, small and warm. She trusts you, Owen said quietly from behind her. Vivian smiled. She trusts kindness. Kids see truth before adults learn to hide it. When Vivian stood, she turned to him, eyes shimmering. You could have let me distance myself today. You told me to. Why? Because people like you aren't meant to hide behind others. You lead even when it hurts. She exhaled, the weight of the day finally settling. And you? You save people who don't ask to be saved? He chuckled softly. Maybe that's my curse. Or your calling, she said. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating their faces for a brief, unguarded second. Two lives marked by loss, meeting in the quiet after chaos. Then Owen spoke again, voice low. Vivian, whatever happens next, don't lose what you found out there by the ocean. The boardroom, the headlines, they'll try to take it back. She met his gaze steadily. Then I'll fight to keep it. Not alone this time. He nodded once, his smile small but certain. Not alone. In the next room, Eli's voice echoed faintly through the phone speaker she'd left on the counter, a voicemail he'd recorded earlier that day. Hi, Mom. I saw you on TV. You looked brave. I'm proud of you. Vivian pressed a hand over her mouth, tears finally falling. Owen reached over and quietly set his hand atop hers. Outside, the storm began to fade, leaving behind the clean scent of rain and a single truth that needed no words. They were no longer two people surviving separately, but two hearts beginning to heal together. The storm outside had passed, but inside Cross Holdings, change was only beginning. 3 days after the press conference, Vivian returned to the tower, not with a press team or legal escort, but with purpose. Jenna met her in the lobby, relief flashing across her face. They're waiting for you upstairs. Everyone's been quiet, like the calm before something good. Vivian smiled. Then let's not keep them waiting. When the elevator doors opened, dozens of employees looked up from their desks. Some clapped softly, others just nodded. Respect no longer looked like fear, it looked like trust. Owen stood at the far end of the hall, sleeves rolled up, reviewing a safety proposal with maintenance staff. He looked perfectly at home amid cables and charts. When he noticed her, he gave a small nod, an unspoken, "You made it." Vivian stepped into the center of the floor and addressed her team. I've spent most of my career building structures strong, tall, perfect, but I forgot the most important foundation: people. She paused, letting the words breathe. From this day on, Cross Holdings will launch a new initiative, Human First. It's about remembering that behind every email, every report, every late night, there's a person with a life that matters. A murmur of surprise swept the room. Vivian continued, That means new schedules, mental health support, family leave, and open doors. It means no more pretending that exhaustion is ambition. Owen watched her quietly, pride flickering across his face. After the meeting, Vivian joined him in the break room. So? She asked, pouring coffee. Do I sound like someone who knows what she's doing? He grinned. You sound like someone who finally means it. She laughed, leaning against the counter. You know, I used to think strength was never needing anyone. Now I think it's letting people help. That's how teams survive, he said. Even in war. Do you miss it? She asked. He thought for a moment. The army? No. The purpose? Sometimes. But maybe I found a new version of it here. Vivian looked out the window. The skyline reflected warm light gold instead of steel. Funny, she murmured. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm running a company. I feel like I'm raising one. At that, Owen chuckled. Then you're doing something right. That afternoon, the office buzzed with a different kind of energy. Employees lingered longer, not from fear, but connection. Someone brought pastries. Someone else shared photos of their kids. Eli and Lily visited after school, darting between desks, leaving small paper hearts on monitors. It's for your kindness tax, Lily explained solemnly, handing one to Jenna. You have to pay it with a smile. The staff erupted in laughter. Vivian stood beside Owen, watching the children weave through the crowd. You realize they've done more for morale in 10 minutes than any HR campaign ever could? Owen smiled. That's because they don't overthink kindness. They just give it. Vivian turned to him. Maybe we should take notes. Already am, he said, tapping his temple. For a brief moment, the weight of titles, scandals, and mistakes melted away. There were just two parents, two children, and a growing sense that something fragile but beautiful had taken root inside the glass tower. The launch of Human First had ended hours ago, but its afterglow lingered. The glass tower, once sterile and silent after dark, now hummed faintly with music from the atrium. Employees had stayed late not to work, but to talk, to laugh, to live. Vivian stood by the balcony overlooking downtown Portland, her champagne untouched. From here, the streets below looked almost peaceful. For the first time in years, she didn't see profits or projections, she saw lives, all moving forward. Quite a night, Owen said, stepping beside her. He loosened his tie, looking both proud and exhausted. Vivian smiled. You'd think a company party couldn't feel like a family reunion, but somehow it did. He chuckled. Turns out people just needed permission to be human again. She glanced at him. And what about you? How do you feel being back in the middle of all this? He shrugged lightly. Like a mechanic in a cathedral. Everything looks fragile and sacred at the same time. Her laughter was soft, genuine. You have a strange gift for making sense of chaos. That's just experience, he said. You learn to find beauty in things that refuse to stay broken. The words landed between them, charged and quiet. Vivian looked down at her hands. I don't know how to thank you for saving me, for staying, for reminding me how to breathe. He shook his head. You don't owe me gratitude, Vivian. You already paid it forward every time you chose people over power. The hum of the city faded into the background. Through the glass, she could see Eli and Lily asleep on the office couch, curled up under one blanket, their heads touching. The sight softened something deep inside her. Look at them, she whispered. Two worlds colliding and somehow fitting perfectly. Emily. Owen followed her gaze. Kids don't see worlds. They just see people. Vivian turned to him, her voice low. Do you ever wonder if this, whatever this is, was meant to happen? He smiled gently. I stopped trying to explain miracles a long time ago. They stood side by side, watching the rain begin again, a light drizzle catching the glow of the streetlights. She broke the silence first. When I met you, I was drowning in my own empire. Now, I feel like I'm finally standing on solid ground. He nodded. Funny thing about storms, they don't just wash things away. Sometimes they uncover what's worth saving. Their eyes met. No promises, no confessions, just quiet understanding. Vivian exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing. Tomorrow, the board will probably question everything again. Owen smiled. Then we'll answer them with decency. That's your best weapon now. She laughed softly. And yours? Sugar packets, he said with a wink. For a heartbeat, the world outside the window felt still, just the sound of rain and breathing, steady and alive. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I used to think redemption was a myth. And now? Now I think it looks a lot like this. Owen didn't reply. He didn't need to. He simply placed his hand over hers on the railing, a simple, human gesture that said everything words couldn't. Below them, Portland shimmered through the drizzle, a city rebuilt by heartbeats instead of headlines. 1 year later, Portland bloomed in late spring cherry blossoms scattering across the sidewalks like soft applause. The Cross Holdings building no longer loomed over the city. It belonged to it. Through its glass walls, laughter drifted down from the annual Human First celebration. Banners read, 1 year of heart, 1 year of change. Vivian stood on the rooftop terrace, watching her employees gather around tables of homemade food. There were no name tags, no ranks. The CFO served lemonade. The janitors shared stories with engineers. Somewhere in the crowd, someone was strumming a guitar. She smiled quietly. This wasn't just her company anymore, it was their home. Still counting head count? Came Owen's voice behind her. She turned, laughing softly. Old habits die hard. End quote. He handed her a cup of coffee black, the way she used to drink it when sleep was optional and peace was impossible. Different crowd from last year, he said, glancing over the edge. Less fear, more joy. Vivian nodded. Turns out, kindness scales faster than profit margins. Owen chuckled. You should put that on a poster. Don't tempt me. she said. They leaned against the railing together, letting the wind play with the edge of the banners. The city below glowed gold in the morning Sunday. Down by the main stage, Jenna took the microphone. "Before we begin," she said, "we'd like to thank the people who made this possible." The crowd erupted in cheers as Vivian and Owen stepped forward. Cameras flashed not for gossip, but for gratitude. Vivian raised her hand. "A year ago, I stood here unsure if this company would survive. What I didn't realize was that it wasn't the business that needed saving, it was us." The crowd grew still. Her voice softened. "I learned that redemption isn't about undoing mistakes, but building something better on top of them." She looked at Owen, who gave her the smallest, proudest nod. Vivian continued. "This year, we've helped 40 employees return to school, opened 2 community clinics, and launched a mentorship program for veterans. That's what Human First means. It's not a slogan. It's a promise." Applause thundered across the rooftop. Even Owen, normally quiet during speeches, clapped until his hands stung. When it quieted again, she smiled and added, "And today, we're naming our new community scholarship after someone who reminds us what compassion under pressure looks like. Owen Hayes." The crowd gasped, then cheered. Owen blinked, stunned. "You didn't tell me about this." Vivian grinned. "Some surprises are good for the heart." He looked down, embarrassed, but deeply moved. "You know, for someone who used to hate vulnerability, you're getting dangerously good at it." She laughed. "Blame the company I keep." As the event carried on, Eli and Lily ran up the stairs to join them. Each held a small bouquet wildflowers picked from the rooftop garden. "Mom," Eli said, slightly out of breath, "they said you're famous again." Vivian smiled, crouching to his level. "Only if famous means helping people." Owen chuckled. "That's the best kind." Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy Owen, can we go get ice cream after this?" For a second, everyone froze. The word hung there. Unforced, innocent, real. Owen's throat tightened. Vivian looked at Lily, then at him, her eyes gentle but shining. He knelt and said softly, "Yeah, sweetheart, we'll all go." The crowd in the background blurred, replaced by the small, radiant circle of 4, a family born not of blood, but of healing. By evening, the city had quieted. The rooftop lights dimmed, the music faded, and laughter trailed off into memory. Vivian drove with Owen, Eli, and Lily toward the Oregon coast to the same stretch of sand where everything had once begun. The sky blushed lavender as the sun dipped low, and the Pacific breathed in slow, rhythmic waves. The children dashed ahead, their laughter carried on the wind. Lily's red scarf fluttered behind her like a small banner of joy. Vivian walked barefoot beside Owen, the cool sand grounding her. "I used to come here when things got too heavy," she said. "Back then, I thought silence meant peace. But I've learned it's the people who make the silence feel safe." He smiled, hands in his jacket pockets. "You built walls to survive. Now you're building bridges to live." She glanced at him. "You make it sound easy. It's not. But the hardest repairs are the ones worth making." For a while, they just listened, the sea whispering, the children's voices echoing in the distance. Owen picked up a smooth stone, skipping it across the water. "You know," he said quietly, "when Lily first lost her mom, she stopped speaking for weeks. I thought I'd never hear her laugh again. But today," he paused, watching her chase Eli along the shore. "Today, I heard a sound I thought was gone forever." Vivian looked at him, her voice trembling slightly. "You didn't just heal my company, Owen. You healed us." He met her gaze, steady and kind. "We healed each other." They walked until the children tired and the sky deepened to indigo. Vivian spread a blanket on the sand, and the 4 of them sat close, sharing hot cocoa from a thermos. The steam rose into the cool night air like breath made visible. Eli leaned against Vivian's shoulder. "Mom," he murmured, "are we a real family now?" She looked at him, then at Owen and Lily huddled beside them. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "We always were. We just had to find each other first." Owen put an arm around them both, the other hand gently tousling Lily's curls. "Families aren't built by names or houses," he said softly. "They're built by the people who stay." The moon broke through the clouds then, silvering the ocean and lighting their faces in quiet harmony. Vivian closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound of waves fill the spaces where ambition used to live. After a long pause, she spoke almost as if narrating to the wind. Let me tell you something about second chances. They don't come wrapped in perfection. They come in small, stubborn acts of grace, a hand held too long, a promise whispered too softly. And if you're lucky, they don't just fix what's broken, they show you why it mattered in the first place. Owen turned toward her, smiling. You should put that in your next speech. She laughed. Maybe I just did. The children had fallen asleep between them, small heads resting on folded arms. The waves kept rolling, constant and eternal. Vivian leaned her head against Owen's shoulder, whispering, We did it. He nodded. No, he said quietly. We're doing it. Every day. The camera of life would have panned wide, then 4 silhouettes under the silver moon, their shadows stretching together across the sand. No boardroom, no headlines, just love, forgiveness, and the quiet pulse of a new beginning. Sometimes, life gives us second chances, not through grand miracles, but through quiet hands that choose to stay. Vivian once believed success was measured by the tower she built. Owen believed redemption ended the day he hung up his uniform. But on a quiet stretch of Oregon coast, surrounded by 2 laughing children and the sound of waves, they discovered something greater than ambition, the power of love rebuilt from broken pieces. It wasn't money or status that saved them. It was kindness. It was choosing to listen, to forgive, to reach out even when it hurt. Through Human First, Vivian learned that real leadership begins with heart. And Owen, he learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means using it to guide someone home. Maybe you felt that too, the ache of time, the weight of old regrets, the yearning for connection. But like the porch light that still burns outside a quiet house, hope has a way of waiting for us to notice. You might see it in a child's laughter, a cup of coffee shared between friends, or a simple thank you whispered after years of silence. Because love, once chosen, keeps echoing. Because forgiveness, once offered, never fades. This story reminds us that kindness without condition can change the course of a life, that everyone deserves love and a place to belong. It tells us that human warmth is worth more than wealth or power, and that happiness finds us when we start living for others, not above them. Like the morning light spilling across a worn kitchen table, one act of grace can brighten the darkest rooms of our hearts. So tonight, as you sit beneath your own quiet sky, maybe with a warm cup in hand or the soft hum of an old record playing, take a breath and remember, it's never too late to begin again. If this story touched you, press 1-inch the comments and tell me what part stayed with you. And if it didn't, or if you'd like to see it told differently, press 0. Your voice matters here. After all, we're just people, sharing stories under the same light, waiting for love to return, one heart at a time.